Okay, so you were just telling us that you did college radio. Being that you're on a college radio station now, how does it feel to kind of be back into the studio, back in front of the mic with the headsets on and everything?
This is the revolution of music in America. You know, with the advent of streaming, college campuses, radio stations can be picked up all over the world. And if you pick up and do a great job with that at your local station, you can get exposure worldwide. Let's not kid ourselves. The Onion became famous right here in UW-Madison. And it's sitting on it's sitting on Madison Avenue. You know, this is how these things happen. They happen organically. They happen at our colleges, and they're a chance for people that really want to take something and create something new to do that. It's a good thing.
Now, tell us, what was your show like? You said that people were driving back to school and they happened to be listening to you. So you had a listenership. You had a following. You had one of those shows.
We did. It was called the Stone Cold Right Show. It was a mix of music, talk, and sports, which was really kind of a mismatch for me. I don't watch a lot of sports. But I do follow politics heavily. And but it was interesting because kids would actually listen to the show on their way back to school on a Sunday afternoon. And we lit up a guy on an article one day who happened to be the music director. He had put himself on the front page of the newspaper for new piercings he had gotten. We thought, listen, it's fair game. He's on the newspaper. But apparently the advisor didn't agree. He said, look, if you're going to make fun of the news director or the music director, you can't do that.
He was untouchable.
He's untouchable.
Well, and you went to UW River Falls, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I graduated from the University of Wisconsin River Falls first class in marketing communications. It was a brand new program they created back in '95. In fact, there were only 7 of us that graduated. I was the only guy in the class. So I have the distinction of being the first man to graduate from
Wow.
this marketing communications program. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. And so what happened to your radio career? Did it just kind of end with graduation, or did you ever want to get back into it? Or
You know, I always tell people, if you do anything in college, do an extracurricular of some sort. So with my degree in marketing communications, I also did the local TV show on campus called Focus on You. I did the news one year. I did a debate segment with another person. I did columns for the student newspaper. I did pictures for the student newspaper. And all of this actually translated into real life of being able to walk into an employer and say, I can stand in front of crowds, I can tell stories, I can explain things to people that need to be explained because I've had practice. This is why you have to get involved in these extracurricular activities. These are what the employers are looking for.
so what I'm wondering right now is, why are you running for governor and not working at CNN or something?
There you go. Yeah.
Well,
I feel like that'd be more fun than running for governor.
It would be, but we have a real problem right now, in particular with kids, young adults 18 to 26. There was a Pew Research study done about 2 years ago, about a year ago maybe it was, and it talks about these young, unemployed yet hopeful people. And what's happening is we have an education bubble. And people are getting degrees at colleges that aren't marketable, unfortunately. They're getting degrees, for example, in social sciences. And we don't need that many people in those fields. So they're graduating with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in debt. They can't get a job out of school because they didn't get in a functional, useful field. And they're deeply in debt. They're living in their parents' basements, working at a coffee shop. And if I don't work to fix the system and change that dynamic, not just for them, my kids are going to come in right behind that with the same problems. The engineering department here at Madison needs to be twice the size that it is. The math and science departments need to be twice the size that they are. But so long as there's so much money pouring into education for you to study whatever you want, you're going to go get a degree in basket weaving and discover in 4 years, hey, I had a 4-year run of great times and good memories. But now I got to go back to a 2-year college and get a degree in welding because I didn't pay attention to what the marketplace was really looking for.
So you believe the problem is not in that we don't have enough money in education, we're just directing it in the wrong places?
No, I actually majored in basket weaving. So what is your... No, I'm just kidding.
Well, listen, right now, and most people don't know this, especially when you're in college and you're not focusing on this stuff, 1 in 3 student loans is more than 90 days delinquent. 1 in 3. That's a huge number. That's a giant problem because what happens is you can't discharge student debt in bankruptcy, which means this thing's on your credit report forever until you pay it off. And if you never get the job commensurate with paying this debt off, you're stuck with this. You'll never get a job with GE. You'll never get a job with any of these Fortune 500 companies because they're all going to look you up and they're going to go, well, listen, he can't pay their bills. So we clearly don't think this is
I should check my mail, make sure I'm not one of those 3.
So am I doomed as a journalism major?
No, but if you're going to be a journalism major, make sure that you have a great second major that goes with that. If it's political science, that's fine. But be sure that you have these activities, working a radio station, because there's a lot of small stations that are looking to break people in. My brother was a journalism major. His first job was doing the news at Channel 12 in Rhinelander. That was a great first step for him. And what he ended up doing, though, was he ended up going into the military in order to continue his career. And he's had a great career in 20 years there. He's been to Reykjavik, Iceland. He's been to Ireland. He's been to Belgium for a couple of years. He spent a year in South Korea. I mean, you want to talk about a career that you can then move into CNN. There's the job, there's the way you do that.
So the main thing you're saying is not necessarily that people are picking the wrong majors, but that they're not building themselves up to actually take the next step into a job, per se. Because, for example, yeah, she's only doing journalism, but with this, she'll probably go somewhere with it. Forgive my defensiveness, as we're both journalism majors here defending our liberal arts and everything.
If you're going to be a journalism major, you guys are doing the right thing and doing this. Now, there were probably 400 or 500 people in the journalism school at River Falls. I'm just guessing, I'm ballparking it. The vast majority of them didn't do any radio. They didn't do any of the TV programs. They didn't do journalism. They didn't write for the paper. And then they expected to get out and somehow go show an employer, particularly in a cutthroat industry like journalism, that they were actually worthwhile employees. And so then they end up working at McDonald's and living at their parents until they can pay off their $14,000 loan. That's what it was back when I was a kid. But
so if your kid grows up, and let's say you're talking about that, they're going to eventually enter into the system. Let's say the system isn't fixed by the time they get there. And let's say one of them really wants to do
basket weaving.
No, we'll go a little more realistic. We'll say something like philosophy or psychology. That's a really popular one. What would you tell them in terms of getting them prepared?
Well, there's an interesting book, and I wish I could recall the name of it right off the top of my head. And psychology is a good example. He says, look, we graduated enough individuals in a year. I want to say it was 2010. It was 2009. We graduated as many people for school psychology as there were school psychology programs, positions in the entire country. In that 1 year, there was absolutely no way these people were ever going to be employed in that career field. That's a real problem. That isn't just about did you get involved in extracurriculars. There's a mismatch between the number of jobs available in that field, the number of people being educated in that field. And it's great to go to school, but you got to go to school for the right things. The jobs right now are in healthcare, engineering, math, and science. We need these people to change their majors. And this is my advice. You're welcome to do as a libertarian. I think you're welcome to do whatever you'd like to do with your life. But if you don't want to get out of school and move back in with your parents and be saddled with this debt, and you're a junior or a senior, you might want to think about switching your major and starting all over again, because you can still defer these loans until you get done with college. Doesn't mean you can't take 6 years to do that.
Dad says I can have whatever major I want as long as it's math.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
There's a song from musical Avenue Q that's the first title song is called "What Do You Do with a BA in English?" And it's all
when
about
I
that.
graduated, my parents gave me a book for Christmas because I graduated in December. It said, "I'm an English major. What do I do now?" It was a whole book dedicated to this. And
yeah, exactly. Look, there are great things that can be done with that. A lot of writing opportunities. Magazines are looking for good writers. Books can be written, but you got to find a topic you're passionate in. I'm writing a book right now. It's part of what I'm doing until the end of the campaign. And it's a great use of talents that I already have and how to express ideas and put them out there.
Again, campaigning for governor, writing a book, all these big things, all at the same time. That's quite a load to have.
Well, we're in an immensely dynamic time, and change is happening more rapidly right now around us than ever. And a big part of that change that's happening is within the Libertarian Party. We're going to we believe that in the top offices across the U.S., we think we can probably top 2 million votes, which will be the most that we've ever had for libertarians. This is a seminal turning year for the party and for politics. In Wisconsin right now, 1/3 of all the state legislature seats don't have any competition. People are so turned off by the red team and the blue team. I don't call them, by the way, the Republicans and Democrats. They don't represent those two words. The red and blue team they've so divided the entire population that most people don't even vote. If you think about it, we had a primary this year where 12% of the population voted. 12%. And the only two parties that you could vote for or vote in were the red team and the blue team. That means that 12% of the population decided who's on the ballot for the rest of us.
Was that 12% of the eligible population or overall?
I believe it was eligible population.
Eligible. Oh, wow.
Yeah. 12% of the population owns the entire system. So how you fix this is, as a libertarian, I'm running a donationless campaign because it's 2014. I want to make this about ideas. Look, everybody's got a computer. Everybody's got a smartphone. Everybody has access to the internet. All you have to do is decide to ignore these yard signs that are in 5% of the yards and ignore these ridiculous, stupid, mud-slinging ads because they don't tell you anything.
I love the mudslinging.
Oh God, you're the only one. You're
Said
the only one.
nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Said nobody. This is what these ads are all about. Hate him, love her. Hate her, love him. And no ideas are actually discussed. I was denied the right to be in the televised debates.
Right. I was going to bring that up because the WBA required that you raise $250,000.
They wanted me to raise $250,000, and they wanted me to poll at 10%. And if you join me on Twitter, my Twitter handle's Burke WIGov. One of the things I enjoy doing is making fun of the media and Marquette. They put a new poll in gubernatorial race. It's not a poll. A poll would be if you asked all 4 names equally on the ballot. But they don't do that. What they do is they say, this year you're planning on voting for the Republican Scott Walker or the Democrat Mary Burke, or do you have another candidate you'd like to name? Even though Dennis Fair of the People's Party is on the ballot, just like I am, Robert Burke is on the ballot. But no, we're only going to poll those 2 names. Well, that's not a poll. It's not a valid poll. If you're a political scientist like this guy claims to be, you should be polling all 4 names.
Well, and speaking of your Twitter, that we were looking at it, and
we enjoy trolling the Twitter.
We do, and you're pretty cheeky. And I guess going off of what you were just saying about not getting everything out there, you said.
Would you like to read my latest ones about Mary Burke? Bill Clinton's in town.
I was reading those this morning.
I don't know if we could do those on there.
Right. No, but my favorite one being
hashtags,
a response to Devil's Advocate Radio. That was being libertarian feels like being Charlie Brown. I was
we love that one. That was a good one.
You're just going for the football, and nope, it's being pulled away from you every time.
Every time I go to kick the football, I can't seem to win a baseball game, no matter who I put on my team. It's unfortunate because libertarians have a lot of really great ideas. We believe that we can change the way we have a conversation around a number of really important issues. The one that, is almost settled, but really isn't, is the idea of gay marriage. We could have settled this thing a decade ago. Let's call it civil unions. If you want to get married, go visit a church. Okay? It's a very important religious word for some people. I appreciate that. But you can't keep people from having certain property rights simply over a word. And what this whole issue comes down to is if a gay couple wants to buy a house together, we need to protect that right of ownership transfer upon death, or that ownership right in the case of a divorce or a separation. Well, the same thing is true with an accident, of being able to make emergency medical decisions. These are property right issues. These have nothing to do with the habits of somebody in a bedroom. And we need to defend those. And we could have done that if we just changed this thing to civil unions 10 years ago. That's about changing the paradigm of how we talk about issues.
Now, that's one thing I really want to get into is the Libertarian Party as a whole. Like, I don't know, it's picking up. Like you said, it's one of the new things. In fact, one of my relatives, and I shouldn't say their name because it's a secret ballot, actually voted for the Libertarian Party in the last election for the first time, and they were so happy about it. They're like, for the first time I voted how I feel, what I really believe, and they're really happy, and that's starting to pick up. But it's this whole, like, what is Libertarian exactly? So for us, the big joke is always Libertarians, those are the people that don't want government, right? So the whole Ron Swanson
we channel
thing
Ron
going.
Swanson. What's your opinion on Ron Swanson?
Yeah, so what's your opinion on Ron Swanson? What's your what do you say to people who their only thought of libertarianism is this idea of people who don't want government and this irony that happens with that?
So you got to look at this from the bottom up. So first of all, the difference between libertarian versus the red team and the blue team is the red and blue team are ideologies. These are not a philosophy, they're an ideology. I'm conservative on issues or I'm liberal on issues. But there is no philosophy underpinning either of those. A great example of that is the prohibition on marijuana. There is nothing in that paradigm that makes sense. It's medicine. It's been proven to be medicine. It is medicine for people, and they are already taking it around the state. You're throwing sick people in jail. This needs to stop. When you give somebody who's 18 years old a ticket or a fine and you give them a criminal record for using marijuana, you take away education and you take away job opportunities. You do this all the way up and down the economic model. Listen, I had a lady in Marshfield, I think she was from, Wisconsin Rapids. A 50-year-old woman with her husband. She says, we were smoking pot in our apartment. We'd been obviously smoked for decades. And one of the neighbors smelled it, called the police. They broke down the door. They rushed in. They arrested them both. And she walks into work on Monday and she gets fired. Not because she's ever had a bad review, not because the employer's never been happy with her work, but simply because in her private time she smoked marijuana. And he had no problem until he found out she did it. Now she's got to go on Medicaid. Now she's going to go on food stamps. Look, this doesn't help society. This doesn't help people be free and live a life of their happiness. So at the base of libertarianism is what we call the non-aggression principle. The non-aggression principle says, look, you need to leave people who are acting peacefully alone. It is illegitimate for the government to aggress against peaceful people, period. I don't care what it is. You don't get to knock people's doors down over a flower. That's a pretty simple idea.
Tweet that.
Yes, we can do that.
And so, one of the things that we build off of that then is we look at what other problems really are caused by government's intervention in our lives. And a big one is all the social programs that we think are so great. All these social programs, we have to take the money out of the economy in order to redistribute it into these social programs. If we leave it into the economy and we make it easier for people to create jobs, then people will go get the jobs rather than taking the money. We do believe there should be a base level of support. We don't believe in no basic support levels, but we think that we can also do a better job if we involve charities in this more than doing government programs. When you have a government program, you got to pay all the salaries. You got to have a giant concrete building. You got to have benefits. You got to have retirement programs. Look, I could give every church in the state $1 million for a food shelf at the cost of some of our programs. Why wouldn't that be a better idea? Then when you walk in, it doesn't even have to be a church. It could just be a local charity. But when you walk in, then at least you're accountable to the people there. You have to look them in the eye, and that's not a bad thing. Because what it says is, you know what? They're here to help you. They're compassionate. They love you. And when you get off your feet, when you get back on your feet, when you actually get yourself rolling again, do me a favor. Go volunteer there because they helped you, and you should help somebody else. It costs a fraction of the system. It has a better social impact, and it makes this a local problem because we have bigger problems with poverty in the inner city of Milwaukee than we do in the inner city of Green Bay. That we have one program to deal with that statewide that is exactly the same is one of the examples of the problems with the programs.
Well, and, speaking of employment, your views on, raising the minimum wage, you say it's not a problem of raising the minimum wage, it's the problem of inflation and fixing the system or like currency rather than
this is a big question I get. We have all these programs on the federal level and our wars. I'm done with wars, so for those that can't see me in the studio here, I'm wearing my peace shirt today. Libertarians are done with war. We are so involved in wars around the world, it's ridiculous. But involvement in all of these wars, these giant social programs, have forced the Federal Reserve to print trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. I don't know why nobody's talking about this. We're about to tip over $18 trillion in debt. In 1971, they took us off of the gold standard. In 1964, they took us off the silver standard. Listen, this is what this sounds like. I don't know if you can hear that, okay? These are actual 90% silver quarters. And in 1964, minimum wage was $1.25. And today, those 5 quarters are worth about $17. That is the complete erosion of our purchasing power that has occurred in our money by the government overspending and not paying attention to the damage it's done with these wars and these social programs.
Can you leave some of those here?
We're all college students after all.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll give you, if you want to make extra money, here's a quick, easy thing. Go down to the bank and ask for a bunch of rolls of pennies and go through the pennies and find all the pennies that are marked 1982 and before. All of those pennies are primarily made of copper. Our pennies today are made of zinc and primarily zinc. And so the real copper pennies are worth 3 cents a piece.
So there you go.
But you can't destroy, it's illegal to destroy U.S. currency.
That's a 300% increase.
Wow.
Again, that's an example of the erosion of our currency.
There's your tip of the day on Wisconsinites. Go through your pennies.
Go through your pennies. Okay, well then, how would you go about avoiding inflation? You talked about, I guess, minimizing these social programs, getting out of war. Would that actually make a difference? And I guess also from before you're talking about minimizing these government programs to replace them with charities and stuff, I'm sure every libertarian has kind of a different line, but you mentioned that there has to be a base. What is that base for you, at least, in terms of your stance within the libertarian movement?
Well, again, I draw the line on things like if you have a problem with homelessness in Madison, rather than creating a giant program at the state level, we would help to fund through grants a homeless shelter for Madison or for Milwaukee.
And where would the grants come from then?
Well, the grants would come from the state treasury.
Okay. But then they'd be, so you're kind of looking at a system where it's more local controlled, but it's still funded kind of from
all problems are local. Okay. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely.